Recently I tested Wilson's DynaPWR carbon driver and was kind of blown away by its performance, by its looks, and just the overall quality of this club. But it's not the only offering from Wilson in 2023, they've got the standard titanium model. So in this video I'm going to put these two clubs head to head to find out what differences there are, if there are any. Well, the first thing we'll look at is the appearance of these two clubs. Now if you're looking at these clubs in the rack in the pro shop, almost indistinguishable. There are some very subtle differences with the carbon driver. It says carbon on it for one. We can actually see the in the carbon model, and obviously we can't really see that on the DynaPWR standard titanium, but there is a little bit of an effect on there as well, which kind of brings the similarities closer together. The Wilson logo is a little bit bigger on the carbon. Things start to change now when we start to look at the top of the club. There is a very marked difference between these two clubs. There is the very obvious carbon with the carbon, and with the titanium that isn't there. The lineup graphic is the same on the top of the head with both of the drivers. The club face is exactly the same. Take no notice of these dots, this is just for the launch monitor. So all round, they're both very similar looking. There is some obvious differences with the carbon model, but apart from that, they are very similar. They're both very good looking club heads. To make sure that this comparison is fair, I'm going to set both heads at 9.5 degrees using exactly the same shaft. So let's get the shaft in and let's start the test. Before we look at the data, I just want to talk briefly about the sound and feel of these two clubs. And to be honest, they were basically identical. The feel and the sound off the head is basically identical. The feel of the golf club when it's being swung is basically identical as well. There are some subtle differences when you look at the club heads behind the golf ball, but apart from that, they're basically the same. Let's take a look at the data and see if there's any difference in the numbers. So yes, straight away looking at the numbers, ball speed 162 for the DynaPWR standard, 164 for the carbon. So there is a little bit of difference with regards ball speed there. That could be me, that could be my input. Launch angle 14.7 versus 11.9, so the carbon launching lower even though it's the same loft. Spin rate 2786 versus 2201 for the carbon, so it is a lower spinning head. That is what Wilson are claiming. It appears to be true. Carry 278, 296 total with the standard, 283,307 with the carbon. So the carbon 10 yards longer for me. That's mostly down to that reduced spin rate at 2.2 on average. 2.786 is just a little high for me with the DynaPWR standard. You can see in the top left corner with the ball flight being represented by the red line, the average height is just a little bit too high and the ball's coming down at a slightly too steeper angle, and that's taking a little bit of yardage off. Just before we move on to a conclusion, I just want to quickly look at some of the information a little bit more in depth. So I just want to look at spin rate. So if we look at the spin rate number for the last shot on the screen, 1650, this was with the carbon head. This is the spin rate that kind of worries me a little bit from time to time. If it starts to drop below 2000 for me, due to a high toe hit, which is my bad strike, the ball does tend to get a little out of control. So this is something that you've got to consider. If you're going to go for the low spinning head, you've got to be a little bit careful that you're not the type of player who misses kind of high in towards the toe, because you could be getting really low spin numbers and the ball could be diving off to the left and missing fairways. You'll notice that I hit the ball a little bit straighter with the standard head because the spin rate was a little bit higher. So it's kind of give and take, you know, which one do you want? Do you want to hit the ball a little bit straighter, or do you want to take a little bit of a gamble and get those long bombers? So there we have it. Two drivers, both look very similar, both perform quite similar. One does offer a little bit more spin than the other. And for me, I would have to go with the carbon. I got confused, they look so similar. I would go with the carbon. I'd go for those bombing drives and kind of take a little bit of a risk. If you're somebody who wants to hit the ball maybe a little straighter, potentially the titanium is going to be the driver for you, but you're going to find out your personal preferences and what suits best for you in a fitting. I would definitely go and get fitted for these clubs. And these two drivers are most certainly going to be comparable with your Callaways and your TaylorMades, etc. These are definitely now part of the conversation. They're definitely worth trying. As ever, I'd love to hear from you in the comments box below. Have you tried these two drivers? Which one did you prefer? If you enjoyed the video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again in the next one.